Alrighty, well, thank you so much for being here today. It is a pleasure to have you. Today's date is July 24th of 2025. Could you start off by stating your name?
James R. Pack. I go by Jim.
Awesome. Nice to meet you, Jim. And where were you born?
Was born in actually was born in Waco, Texas. My address was Crawford, Texas. Nobody ever heard of Crawford, Texas till a few years ago, and some guy bought a ranch there, and everybody knows where it is. But I went to Midway High School. The road that went by our house was the dividing line between the two school districts, between Spiggleville Independent School District and Crawford. So we went to Spiggleville. If I'd lived in the barn, which was across the road, I would have gone to Crawford. But the way it was, I went to Spiggleville and then graduated from Midway High School in 1964.
Nice. What were your parents' names?
I'm sorry?
What were your parents' names?
My dad's name was Alton Alva, Oltonalva. He went through life as Boots Pack, Boots. The farm papers even came OA Boots Pack, and most people that knew him all his life would not have been able to tell you what his real name was. My mom's name was Willie Louise.
Nice. And what were their occupations?
They were farmers.
Okay.
They were actually were sharecroppers. We did not own the land that I grew up on. We did not own it, but we when it felt like home because that's where I grew up. But the old house I grew up in was a big, huge it was a two-story house that they never finished the top floor. It had 16-foot ceilings in it because back in those days that's how they cooled the house in the summertime. A big hall down in the middle of it. It was a huge old house, but it was also cool in the wintertime.
Yes.
But they were farmers. We raised cotton, oats, corn, wheat.
Perfect.
My first job was at a cotton gin in Crawford, Texas, working the press at 60 cents an hour.
Nice. Did you ever attend college?
I did. I graduated, like I say, in high school in '64, came to Tarleton, and I was here at Tarleton for 2 years. Then I transferred to A&M, and I lasted a year, and then the Dean of Agriculture, who at that time was Dr. Potts, called me into his office, and he said, "Son, you're not doing so well. I'm going to give you a choice. You can either drop out, or I'm going to have no choice. I'm going to have to kick you out." He said, "College is not for everybody." So I got to the door. His office was up in the front of the big, huge. You've seen the joke of not the joke, but the cartoon of the little bitty guy behind the great big desk in the big room. That was Dr. Potts. He was a little short guy. But anyway, I got to the door and I said, "I'm leaving, but I'll be back." And he just kind of grinned at me. So after serving in the military and getting out of the military in '70 and then working for 5 years as a transmission lineman in Corpus Christi, I went back to A&M, and D's and F's become A's and B's because when you've been in the war, you kind of look at things different.
Absolutely.
So, Dr. Potts had retired, but my senior year I was on the Ag Council at A&M. And Dr. Potts had retired, but he came back. So he was a counselor for the Ag Council. And I walked up to him and I said, "Dr. Potts, you probably don't remember it, but you kicked me out of this mental institution once, and I told you the day I left I was going to come back, and I just want to let you know I'm going to graduate next week." He started laughing. He said, "You know something, son? You're not the first one to come back to graduate just to spite me." That's not the reason, but he was just doing his job. He was a fine man. But I did go back to A&M, got my undergraduate degree and stayed and got my master's degree. And I was telling the story a while ago that I was drinking coffee at the Memorial Student Center one morning, and there was an empty chair right next to me. And I heard 4 words that changed my life, and the 4 words was, "This chair taken." And I looked up into the face of the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. We were married a year later. Had to do an internship, so we took off with all our life belongings, and we spent 9 months in Yosemite National Park.
Wow.
And then we came back, and The status of maintenance in Yosemite National Park with emphasis on electrical distribution and transportation systems. I figured that would be so boring nobody would ever want to read it. That was my thesis.
Really?
Yeah. So, that's my pretty much my education.
Nice. And what's your wife's name?
Janet. She goes by Jan. We have 2 children. Our daughter Julie is both our kids graduated from Tarleton. They both have. Actually, Julie has 3 degrees from Tarleton.
Wow.
No, she has 2 degrees from Tarleton and 3 degrees from A&M. She's a veterinarian in the Army.
Oh, okay.
I had the honor of swearing her into the Army between her 2nd and 3rd years of vet school, and the Army paid for the last 2 years of vet school.
That's great.
But she's a vet, and our son is I call him a computer nerd. He works for a YouTube channel and lives in North Carolina.
Nice.
And her daughter's right now she's stationed at Fort, well, they call it Cavacas. I call it, it'll always be Fort Hood to me. She's stationed at Fort Hood.
Nice. Did you have any jobs before you entered the service?
Yeah, my first job was working at a cotton gin in Crawford, Texas, 60 cents an hour. I would work, and the way it works is the farmers would bring their cotton in their trailers. The cotton was picked and it would be in the trailers, and they would bring it into the gin. Well, they'd like to have their trailers back so they could pick more cotton the next morning, so we would run the gin all night long.
Oh my goodness.
So I would do that summer I'd do my afternoon chores. I'd go to about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I'd go to the gin, watch the sun go down, watch the sun come up the next morning, and about 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning we would be caught up. And then I would go home, do my chores, sleep for 3 or 4 hours, get up and go back, and we'd do it all over. That was 7 days a week. That was my first job.
Wow.
And then after that, I worked at a book bindery in Waco. My mother actually worked there, so I'd work there in the summertime between
School?
classes or school. Yeah, that was probably my first. And then when I got out of the service in 1970, I went to Corpus Christi and was a transmission lineman for Central Power and Light Company down in Corpus. We 80-foot poles, the shortest thing that we had. So that was probably the best shape I've ever been in my life, because if you climb up and down poles all day long, you'll get in shape.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. When did you join the military?
Why?
When?
In 1968.
Perfect. And did you enlist? Were you drafted?
I enlisted because I didn't want to get drafted.
Gotcha.
When I flunked out of A&M, they changed my draft status to 1A, which meant that you were going to get drafted. And I knew if I get drafted, I was going to get sent to Vietnam, and I did not want to go to Vietnam. So I joined the Navy. Went from Crawford, Texas to San Diego, California to boot camp. Got out of boot camp, went aboard the USS Hacienda, AO-145 as an oiler, and straight to Vietnam.
So you didn't want to go to Vietnam, so you went ahead and enlisted.
I ended up in Vietnam anyway. But and I was a teletype repairman. That was my main. I was a radioman, which was communications, and my second MOS was teletype repairman. You ever know what a teletype is? Very few people do. It was a electrical mechanical piece of equipment that they take radio waves. They would make the message or whatever you were typing into a radio wave. It would be received aboard ship, and then it was encrypted, so you couldn't read it unless you had the particular. And then it was unencrypted aboard ship, and it went through this machine. And it, like I say, there was right at 1,000 working parts in this machine, and it typed all the messages at 100 words a minute.
Wow.
And of course, they do it by page now in computers, but it was an electrical, mechanical piece of equipment. I got to the point I could almost walk up to one and listen to it and tell you what was wrong with it. Because that's all I did all day long was work on it. And we would go alongside other ships, and if they didn't have a repairman, they would send their stuff over, I'd repair it, and then we'd send it back.
Wow.
But that was my main job. And then I spent some time in Cameron Bay. I was TAD, temporary assigned duty, off the ship, because they did not have a teletype repairman there. There was a void there. If the guy that was doing it got transferred, and then the guy was coming in wasn't there yet. So, and I got all their teletypes working, and didn't have anything else better to do, and I couldn't go back to my ship because it was too far out at sea. And I got bored, so I started riding the patrol boats up and down the river with the guys. If you don't think you can roll reed grass with a 50 caliber machine gun, think again, because you can. I've seen it done. Anything on the riverbank that moved, if they didn't know what it was, they got shot.
Oh, really?
And that included some kind of a critter in the reed grass on the side of the river. Literally, they would mow that reed grass with a 50 caliber machine gun. We're talking thousands of rounds.
Wow.
If it was there, it didn't live. And then did that for a short time, and then went back to the ship. I was glad to get back to the ship. Somewhere I have they call it a plan of the day, outside the ship's office. They post what's going to go on for that day. And December the 25th, 1969, I have a copy of it somewhere. I wish I could find it. It was December 25th, it was Christmas Day. All it said was, Christmas is rescheduled until tomorrow due to unreps. Unrep is underway replenishment. That's when we pull along other sides and refill them. And so I said only the Navy could reschedule Christmas.
Absolutely. What made you pick Navy?
Mainly because my mom's uncle had been in the Navy. He lived out in California. Okay. And actually I called him up when I was looking at what to do, and he was a cook in the Navy. And I said, Uncle Kelly, what do you think I should do? And he said, well, if you like beans, join the Navy. I said, what do you mean? He goes, the Navy serves a lot of beans. They didn't, but apparently they did. He was in World War II, but apparently they didn't. But I can honestly say I can never really had a bad Navy meal. Navy chow is good. They got tired of eating roast beef, but because once you're at sea for about maybe 2 to 3 weeks, you run out of fresh milk, you run out of fresh vegetables. Everything is either canned or frozen. So, but it's still good food. But the over-reconstituted milk they serve is pretty bad stuff.
Oh my goodness. When you were at boot camp, what was a fond memory that you had there?
A boot camp? I have memories, none of them are fond.
Do you have a funny story?
Not really. I mean, boot camp teaches you to be a part of the team. The first thing they do is they break you down and then they build you back up as a team. So you learn to be a team. And that's really that's the main purpose of boot camp, is to teach you to be one little bitty cog in a great big wheel.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that. Other than that, that's about all you learn in boot camp. Of course, you learn things that you take with you the rest of your life. I mean, my wife has learned to fold my underwear the same way that we fold our underwear in boot camp. And of course, she does the laundry, so she still folds my underwear and puts it in my drawer, just like it was in boot camp. I still make the bed every morning when I get up. If you're supposed to be somewhere at 1 o'clock and you're there at 1300 military time, and you're there at 12:46, you're late. So, I mean, that's the things you learn. You learn that military time, if you're not there 15 or 20 minutes early, you're late. You see, they teach you that in boot camp.
Absolutely. Was there a certain instructor or leader that stood out to you at boot camp?
Not really, nobody that I can remember. BM1 Carlson was our leader, our boot camp CO. I mean, he was that's what he did. I mean,
absolutely. What was your first assignment after boot camp?
USS Oceanipa, AO 145. It was an oiler.
Okay.
There's a Navy rule that no Navy ship at sea can get below 80% fuel. They have to keep their fuel tanks topped at all times. And we were basically a floating service station. We carried 188,000 barrels of NSFO. That's Navy special fuel oil. It's the old black oil that they burn in the boilers aboard Navy ships. We carried 80,000 gallons of JP5, which is jet fuel, and 60,000 gallons of avgas, aviation gasoline. So we would refuel the carriers and the destroyer escorts with the carriers and stuff. We'd refuel all those at sea.
Nice.
And that's what we did.
Did you receive any special training? Can you talk about the training you received in order to go into your specialty?
I did. I went to Teletype Repair School. It was a 8-week school at Fort I can't remember the name of it now. It's at the little Fort Island. That's right. And my ship was home ported out of Pearl Harbor. That's where all the dependents were living and everything, and that's where the ship was home ported. And Fort Island was a little island in the middle of Pearl Harbor, and that's where the training. So I went to training there and learned how to work on teletypes.
Nice. Did you receive any promotions in the Navy?
I did. I made my way up to the first class petty officer, which is an E6. For selection board eligible for chief for like 3 years in a row, and I couldn't make chief. I asked a buddy of mine, I said, what am I supposed to do? And he said, apply for LDO, essentially limited duty officer. He said, excuse me, I'm losing my voice for some reason. He said, apply for LDO. He said, you won't make it because they only select about 2 or 3 out of the whole nation every year, but you'll find out what's in your record that's keeping you from making chief, which was the next level up for me. So I applied for LDO, went through the whole process. I did find a couple of things in my service record that needed to be fixed, and I feel like I want to make chief this year. Chief boards came out, I didn't make chief. 2 days later, I got a letter in the mail that said, congratulations, you've been selected for LDO. To this day, I did not know.
No way.
I do not know why I could not make chief, but so I basically started my career over again. I was in the reserves at the time because I got off active duty in 1970, and we're talking. Well, I was 18 years. I was enlisted 18 years.
Wow.
And I retired in 2003 with 38 years, 4 months, and 2 days.
Wow.
So. But like I say, most of that was reserve. I was only active a little over 2 years. And I started my career over as a ensign, a lieutenant JD, and worked my way up to lieutenant commander, and that's why I retired as lieutenant commander. I served all kinds of different branches and CO of a few units, commanding officer of a few units. I traveled all over the Navy sent me all over the world. I went to just about every place you could think of, all the continents. I have a very fond memory. My last duty station was I was assigned to I was a communications officer for a fleet hospital. A fleet hospital is the same thing as an Army MASH unit. It's a a 500-bed mobile hospital. It's all containerized, and it can be shipped anywhere in the world, and you can be up and operating in about 2 days.
Wow.
It's got you've got operating rooms, you got hospital beds, it's got everything. And we did a humanitarian effort in Ghana, South Africa, 1 year.
Really?
We were in Ghana for 3 weeks. We'd go back into the country, back in where these people, then they had no medical care. One of the things I remember, we went to one of the villages. These villagers knew we were coming, and they would wait for like 2 or 3 days in line. Literally spend 24 hours later. They would just stand in line for 2 or 3 days to get to see the doctor, because they knew that the doctor was coming. We would put. They would treat people for. I remember one guy, he had a gunshot wound for like 5 years, and the bullet was still in his side, and they operated on him and took the bullet out. Some of it was very. To this day, I've got a mental picture of this little girl. She was about 4 or 5 years old, and we pulled up in our bus, and her mother was pouring water over her head, and. So one of the doctors took her in and came out and he literally tears. So what's wrong, Doc? He goes, she's got malaria. It's okay. He said, we can't treat her. We don't have any malaria drugs. Or what? And he said, she's probably going to die.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, it just break your heart, because I mean it's a simple thing. If you don't have the material, if you don't have the drug, you don't have the drug. The rewarding thing, one of the most rewarding things, they would check kids' eyes, as young kids, they would check their eyes, and then put glasses on them. And we could actually grind glasses right on, we would grind the right prescription for their eyes. And they would put these glasses on and they would go, their mouth would come open. It was like the first time in their life they'd been able to see clearly. And that was so rewarding.
Absolutely.
I enjoyed that so much. It was a fun time.
Wow. And that's one of those moments where you sit back and you're like, I did something to help others.
Yeah.
And you feel, a lot of the veterans come in here that we interview, and biggest thing that they all say is the best things in life are the things you don't do for yourself. And that's incredible.
That is exactly true. That is 100% true. I was just so glad that I got to do that.
Absolutely. Was that your favorite
This whole unit
duty
was
station?
doctors and nurses and me. I was the only non-medical person in the unit.
Mm-hmm.
But
what made them send you?
well, I was the communications officer.
Gotcha.
So I mean, when I went along, and we had a small repeater. It's called a repeater. It's a radio that takes a signal and makes it, sends it out. And then each one of the, like the CO and the guys in charge of security and every one of the head honchos, they all had radios. So I had to make sure the radios worked and make sure they were charged and make sure they were on the right frequency. And that was my main job. But I mean,
Gotcha.
you're talking 5 minutes a day, and then the rest of the day I had nothing to do. So I would hang out with the nurses and the doctors and the optometrists and all those guys. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it was that was the fun thing.
Was that your favorite duty station?
Yeah, I'd have to say it probably was. I mean, I still keep up with a lot of the guys out of that unit, even though we're all retired now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I got a lot of good stuff out of the military, but I also ended up with I have Parkinson's disease because I was exposed to Agent Orange in Vietnam. Me and 14,000 other people. But yeah.
Absolutely. I'm sorry to hear about that.
It is what it is. There's nothing you can do about it.
Absolutely. Where were a couple other places that you served? I know you went to Vietnam, and I know you talked about Ghana. Was there anywhere else that you got to go that you enjoyed?
Like I say, I've been all over. I went to a NATO exercise, and one year in, well, I'm having a senior moment here now, and we were in Norway, and we were actually in a cave that was built by the Germans in World War II, and we was like I say, it was a NATO exercise, and one of the guys that was there was a general in the Italian army, and so General Borelli. And I got to meet General Borelli, and we were all staying at the BOQ. And I went down one night, and I was going to make I had a bag of microwave popcorn, and I was going to put it in the microwave and eat that popcorn. And he and a couple of the other officers that were there, they were cooking dinner. He was making chili. And he says, "What you doing?" I said, "I'm making." He said, "No, why don't you eat some chili with us?" And I said, "Oh, that's all right." He said, "No," he said, "I outrank you. You eat chili with us." So I said, "Okay." So some of the best chili I'd ever had in my life.
Really?
And he said, matter of fact, I've still got the recipe, and I make my chili by General Borelli. We call it Borelli chili, Borelli chili. But I got to meet him, and then he said, "If you ever come to Italy, you must come and see me," and I said, "I'll do that." And I never thought I would, but it was about 3 years later. I was in Naples. I got my annual training was in Naples at the computer station, and so I called him up, and me and a buddy of mine rode the train. He met us at the train in Rome. He lived in Rome, and if you want to see Rome, see it with a Roman citizen.
Yeah, absolutely.
He took us in his personal car all over Rome, took us to all the fancy places. We got to see the Vatican, got to see the catacombs outside of Rome. He took us all over the place, and then took us to his home, and his wife had cooked dinner for us. So we had dinner, and then he
was it chili?
Oh God, was it ever good! And then he took us back to the train, and we went back. So, like I say, if you want to see Rome, see it with a Roman.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was a fun time. There's been others, but that's probably some of the ones that really stick out that I really remember.
Nice. So you talked about how you were limited duty officer. Did you serve in other leadership capacities throughout that time prior to that?
Did I do what now?
Did you serve in any leadership capacities prior to that?
Not until I made officer. I mean, I was enlisted. You have some leadership, but not very little.
Gotcha. Is there a memorable incident that you would like to share throughout your service?
Not one that I can really remember. I like the one I just told you about, General Borelli. I remember that one, but there's others, but they're all. While we were in Norway that year, I met he was a retired policeman, and he came by one afternoon while we were there, and he actually took us on a tour of all the castles around in Norway, and explained to us what all happened. He was a history buff, and he was staying in these old castles with his head, and he was out there. Certain on that side of the river, certain people had 5,000, and then over here there was 5,000, and over here there was 3,000, and they all fought this battle. And he knew all about all these battles. It was really interesting. But other than that, that was one of those. There's so many that if after 38 years and you're on once a year, you're either 2 or 3 weeks active duty, you're going to go to a lot of different places.
Absolutely. And what was your wife doing throughout this time? I know you mentioned she went to college. Did she work and stay in the States? Where was your wife at throughout your time abroad?
Home raising the kids.
Nice.
She didn't. Jan went back to work after the kids were. Before the kids was born, she was work. After the kids was born, she never went back to work. other than keeping me out of trouble.
And where was home for her?
She was born in Richardson, Texas.
Okay. And is that where she was living while you were serving?
No, when we first got married, like I said, we lived in Yosemite. We came back to Texas, lived in Garland for a while. Then we bought a house in Plano. I went to work for, when we first got back, I went to work for Frito-Lay. I was a packaging supervisor. And for the evening shift, we packaged in Doritos and Fritos. My wife made me take my shoes. We lived in an apartment, and she made me take my shoes off outside because they had the grease from the frying pans and stuff, and I smelled just like Doritos or Fritos. But anyway, we did that for a while, and then I went to work she was working for an independent drilling contractor in Garland and Richardson. And so I went to work for them for a while, and then went to work for a little computer company in Dallas, a little company called Electronic Data Systems. It's not little, it's big. And then I worked for them for about 5 years. Went to work, that's my first university, I went to a university project. I went to work at the University of North Texas. I was there at 5 years as a physical ed director. I left there and I was at Baylor for a year. Baylor doesn't do anything, they outsource all their work, and kind of like Charlton does now. And so I was there for a year, and then they lost the contract. I was working for a company called Waco Construction Company. I wasn't actually working for Baylor. They lost their contract, and then that's when I came to Charlton.
Nice.
So that was kind of my work history.
Gotcha. Yeah, absolutely. What was it like being, obviously you weren't always gone for extended periods of time, but even 2 weeks is kind of hard to do, especially with raising kids. What was it like leaving your wife and kids at home?
It was hard, but I had been more active. I'd seen how the guys that were aboard ship with me, and you're talking a cruise, or what we call it a cruise, a deployment. A deployment was, back in those days, was anywhere from 12 to 14 months. So you were gone for over a year at a time. And I've seen how that affected the guys that were aboard ship that left wife and kids. I mean, there was guys that left pregnant wives standing on the pier when the ship pulled out, and would come back, the kids are a year old already, and hadn't even, the first time he'd ever been able to hold his kid. And like 3 weeks is the most I was ever gone. So, that's rough, but not that bad.
Absolutely.
I mean, and my wife's a good planner, good, I mean, she runs the family, so she does all the planning, and she pays all the bills, and she's got a degree in business, so I figured tell her she might as well use it for something. But she takes care of the family. Well, the family is just she and I now, but back in those days when we homeschooled our kids, so she not only was a teacher, but mom and teacher and cook and
many hats.
She wore all those hats and did a darn good job of it. Like I say, both our kids have got degrees and both have done well. So
absolutely.
And she's tutored other kids in our church that was having problems with math and science and stuff. She's tutored them, and she's just a good teacher.
Incredible. She sounds like a phenomenal.
One of the things I ever did was marrying her.
Did you form any friendships during your time in the service?
Yeah, many friends, many of them, and a lot of them. I say a lot, probably. Oh, there's at least a dozen or so that even today I keep up with. They call it buddy checks. The 11th of every month. I don't know why they were coming out the 11th, but the 11th of every month, I've got 6 or 7 guys that I call just to check on them, just to make sure how they're doing. Some here in Texas, I got one guy in that I call that lives in Louisiana, and then there was another guy that lives in North Dakota that I call. But we just call him. We may not spend 2 minutes on the phone, but we called just to check. And then I got my brother-in-law actually calls me. He was never been in the military, but he actually called me. He lives in Waco, and my sister and brother-in-law live in Waco. And he called me on the 11th to check on me. And we may have talked 2 days before, but on the 11th he's going to call me anyway.
Oh goodness.
Yeah.
Absolutely. How did you keep in touch with your family while you were gone?
Back in those days, you didn't have any email and stuff. It was all by letters. And
was it worth sending the letters?
What I did was I bought a little small tape recorder, and it had little bitty reels on it. They would last about 15 minutes. And my mom had one of those, and I had one aboard ship. So we actually sent these little tapes, but they were not cassette, but it was actually a tape that was riding on this little reel. And so we would send those back and forth, and that's how we communicated.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's
I
unique.
still got a couple of those things somewhere.
That's very unique.
Yeah, it was back in those days. If you sent a letter, I don't think it's still true, but if you sent a letter from a combat zone, if you sent a letter from Vietnam, well, you just wrote free on it, and the post, and it went. You didn't even pay no postage on it. So I sent these little cassettes, these little tapes, and I just wrote free on it. And the postman, when he got it to my mom, he said, "This don't have any postage on it. You got to pay postage." And she said. And so she told me what happened on the tape, and I told her on the next tape I sent back to her, I said, no, it's free. You tell him that, check his record, or check with somebody that knows better, that you get to send that free. You don't have to pay postage on it. And sure enough, she did. So she had to educate the postman.
That's a funny story.
Yeah, it's one of those things that happened back in those days.
Absolutely. I've heard of sending letters throughout Vietnam. I don't think I've ever heard of people sending tapes back and forth.
Yeah, we did. We sent tapes. And she used to send, at least around Christmas time and stuff, she would always send cookies and stuff.
Aww.
She would send her homemade cookies, and she would pack them in popcorn. And the popcorn was just there to keep the cookies from breaking. But we eat the popcorn too.
It was worth it.
Yeah, all my buddies, it was old and stale, but it was from home, so it was good, so we'd eat the cookies. And she even sent a little package of cookies for the CO of the ship. And of course, she didn't know who he was, but she'd heard me talk about him. So she sent some cookies to the CO, and I was digging through my stuff when I knew this was in her, and I found the letter where he had written her a real nice thank you letter.
Aww.
Yeah.
That was sweet. What did you like to do when you were off, like for leisure and R&R? Of course, there's not a whole lot of options, but what was your favorite thing to do?
I did something that my parents never did approve of. I took up skydiving.
Oh?
I've actually skydived in Hawaii, and of course in Texas. I skydived in Japan, the Philippines, so where else? There's one other country that but I can't think what it is now. I haven't seen them all. But anyway, I love skydiving. I picked it, but now that I got a little older, I realized that I don't do that anymore.
Retired that hobby too?
Haven't done that in a long time. But I enjoyed skydiving, and that was one of the things that I picked up while I was Captain Waits. I told me I used to make fun of because I would have my parachute and I'd be walking off the ship, and back in those days you weren't allowed to have civilian clothes aboard ship. You had to have a locker out on base somewhere that you kept your civilian clothes in. So here I am in my white clothes, my dress drape clothes, with my parachute on my back, leaving the ship. And he was in Airedale. He actually was a test pilot for the Navy.
Wow.
And but they give him, what they do is they give these senior captains these oilers so they have deep draft experience, because that oiler had the same, what they call it a draft, that's how much water that the ship takes up. And so the oilers had about the same amount of draft as a carrier, so they would have a duty on an oiler, then they would put them on as a CO of a carrier. So anyway, but he would make fun of me. He said the only way he's going to jump out of an airplane is because it's falling, not because he wants to for fun. But he used to make fun of me about that.
Wow. What was it that drew you to skydiving?
I don't really know. I don't know whether I saw somebody doing it or what.
One of those just try it one time and fell in love?
Yeah, I guess. I joke about it, but we were jumping a little. They call it Kickapoo Airport. It was right on the north end of Oahu. That's an island, and we would go up on weekends and jump literally all weekend long. And I overshot my landing zone one time and ended up in a sugarcane field.
Uh-oh.
And you're talking stuff this stuff is 12, 14 foot tall, and you're right in the middle of it, and you've got a parachute in your arms.
Which way's out?
I'm walking around in that parachute, and I'm struggling around in there, and after about 10 minutes, I see tracks, and I realize those are my tracks. And then finally, somebody they had pulled up on the road, and they started honking their horn, so I walked to the horn and got out. But they called me Lost Pack after that.
Oh my goodness!
Because I got lost in the sugarcane field.
Oh goodness! What was it like coming back from Vietnam? Did you ever face any backlash?
Yeah. Come through the airport in San Francisco, and the hippies were there, and they spit at me and called me baby killer, and to this day it still hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that I'd like to forget about, but I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would really hurt from nearly everybody that I knew would tell you the same story, that the Vietnam veterans or the Vietnam military, the people that went in the military in Vietnam, were not well supported back home, and that hurt.
Absolutely. Thank you for opening up about that.
It is what it is.
Do you recall the day that your service ended? Where were you and what were you doing?
That ended?
Mm-hmm.
I have it. I'll give you a copy of it here. They had a retirement ceremony for me in Dallas.
Nice.
And they give my wife and my mother both flowers. The admiral of the Fleet Hospital was attached to was actually my retirement speaker, and I got to give a little speech, and yeah, it was a good day.
That's good.
Yeah.
What was it like being, you had gone so long of coming home and then being gone for a couple weeks at a time? What was it like to know that you just get to be home?
I missed it. I actually enjoyed being in the military. My mom used to say, when are you going to get out of the military? He was afraid I was going to get called up to active duty again. She used to constantly, when are you going to get out? When are you going to get out? When are you going to get out? And I liked it too much.
So you were received very positively by your family?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I would have probably stayed in longer, but they have a rule that if you get passed over for promotion 3 times, you have to retire. And I I got to, the higher you go, the harder it is to make the next rank. So, and so lieutenant commander is as high as I ever got. I was in zone for commander, but just I got good fit reps and everything, but just could not get picked up. I was being a communications officer. There's very, very few places you can go with that. I mean, you're pretty much you can't branch out. You're one branch, and that's it.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yes, sir. How did you adjust to civilian life? I know you said that you really missed it, but what was the hardest part about your retirement?
The people, not being able to see my buddies every once a month. When you go to employments with them and you see them one weekend a month and all, they become family. It's like another family. And I miss that more than anything. I'd like to say some of them I've kept up with. Admiral Mazarin I've kept up with. We're Facebook buddies. And a few of the other people, but yeah, that's the main thing.
Absolutely, that must be hard. Do you feel like your service affected the way that you related or interacted with other people?
Yes, by all means.
How so?
Well, in my civilian occupation, being in the military had taught me things like how to be fair and impartial when it comes to supervision and supervising others and all. And the military taught me how to do that, and then I took that over into my civilian life. When I had, well, like here, I was retired from Tarleton as a physical actor. I had nearly 60 people that worked for me, not directly, but indirectly. And then I learned those supervisory skills I learned in the military.
Absolutely. Do you feel like because of the military it kind of changed the trajectory of your career afterwards?
Maybe. Probably so. Probably more than I would want that I would really realize. But yeah, probably.
What are some lessons that you feel like you learned from your service that you still carry today? I know you mentioned you still have your wife fold your underwear a certain way, you still make your bed. What are some more of those lessons?
Like I said, we just got to say how to be fair and impartial when you're dealing with people. Just the way the military people think. You don't always think like a civilian does. And just like I told you earlier, my wife is always late for everything, and I'm always early. It's not really been a problem in our marriage, but it's something that's it's not a little bit on the edge.
Because you're always sitting back going, come on, we're late.
You know, if church starts at 9:45, and that means we need to be there about 9:15. To her, that means 10 o'clock. or you know, I mean, that's just not really been a contention, but it's been something that's kind of our whole married life.
Differences in opinions, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, that's just one of the things I can think of. I'm sure there's others, but I can't really think of any right now.
Absolutely. When we say the phrase, freedom isn't free, what does that mean to you?
Exactly that somebody has to pay for that freedom. I tell people there's 3 days during the year that's observed military. Patriots Day is for those who wear the uniform every day. Veterans Day is for those who no longer wear the uniform every day. And Memorial Day is for those who never had the opportunity to take the uniform off. I have a favorite saying. So there's only two people that ever offered to die for you: the American GI and Jesus Christ. One died for your freedom, the other died for your soul. And I honestly believe that. And around Memorial Day and Veterans Day every year, I remind people of that.
Absolutely.
That freedom is not free. Somebody paid for that freedom. And I feel honored that I got the people. When people find out, in the military, they said, "Thank you for your service." I have a standard answer to them. I said, "I consider it an honor to serve my country," and I really do.
Do you feel like your faith kind of helped lead you through your service?
Yes, by all means.
Absolutely.
Yeah. By all means.
And what denomination are you?
Well, I go to a Baptist church.
Baptist?
Or Cottonwood Baptist Church.
Okay. How has, and you may not have an answer to this, how do you feel like the military and your service has impacted your feelings about war and other conflicts?
The Bible says there will be wars and rumors of wars. And there probably always will be until Jesus comes. And I know that we won't always, that me personally, that I don't like having to fight wars, but if it hadn't been for people that were willing to fight those wars, World War II and World War I and Korea and Vietnam and even the conflicts that we get in today, if somebody wasn't willing to fight those wars, we would not enjoy the freedom that we enjoy. And I'll leave it at that.
Absolutely. Did you ever join any veterans organizations?
Yeah, I'm a member of the American Legion.
And how do you feel that has impacted you?
There again, I'm not one that go to a lot of meetings, so I don't go to all the American Legion meetings. Up until recently, I was on their honor guard. We would do honors at funerals, and I won't say I enjoyed that, but it gave me a good feeling to know that I was able to help with the loved ones, some families' loved ones, and give them the proper send-off that they deserve.
Absolutely.
To give a flag to somebody and say, "Thank you for your service." Basically, you hand them the flag and you say, that the nation and appreciates what their loved one did, and to know that somebody will do that for me someday.
Does it make you feel connected to, the service that you spent your whole life to, building those friendships you had talked about, and that career that you missed?
Yes, I do miss it. I'd be lying if I didn't. If I said I didn't, but I do. Even though I retired in 2003. I'd go back and do it today if they let me.
Absolutely. Did you ever attend any reunions?
Yeah, a couple. When I first got out, I went at the Fleet Hospital reunions. They had a couple. I've been to a couple of those.
How are those?
They're fun.
That's good.
Yeah. It was usually just a one-day deal, usually at NAS Fort Worth.
Nice. About how many people would you say attended?
The last one I went to, there was probably 20 people there.
20? That's a good sized group.
Yeah, it's pretty good. The older you get, the less and less, we die off. And I'll be 80 years old in the 12th of next month, so.
You don't look a day over 21.
I think, actually, I tell everybody I'm not 80, I'm 40 times 2.
There you go. Yes, my mom for years used to say, I'm only 21. And then now that I'm 21, she had to at least say she's a little older.
Well, my wife says that you girls always do it wrong. Instead of, if you're 35, if you're 45 and you tell people that you're 35 or 38 or something, she said, no, if you're 45, you tell them you're 50, and they'll say, oh, you look good for 50.
That's funny. Oh my goodness. Is there anything that you would like future generations to know about your military service?
Gosh, I don't know what it would be other than, that if you have the chance, serve your country. Give back to a country that's given you freedom and the opportunity that you have that you would never have in other countries. So, I'm really disappointed that my son did not serve in the military, but it just wasn't for him. But on a whole, I think that would be it. I would tell people, if you give a chance, serve your country.
Absolutely. And that disappointment with your son, is it because of your love for the military and your service?
Well, yeah, exactly. I know he grew up on the farm or the ranch. We own a small ranch where we raise longhorn cattle, and he used to say the only way he wants to see the cow is on a plate. He just was not he's just not an outdoorsy type. And our daughter's the exact opposite.
The veterinarian.
She loves animals, and so she's outside.
And what drove her? You said Army earlier, correct?
Yeah.
What drove her to join the Army?
She got what they call a PSP scholarship while she was at vet school at A&M. The Army. I actually had the honor of swearing her into the Army between her junior and senior, or second and third year. Vet school 4 years, and between her second and our third and fourth year, I had the honor of swearing her into the Army, and the Army paid for the last 2 years of vet school.
Wow. Did she or any of your other children use your military benefits?
They would do. No. Other than them paying for the last years of vet school, and then they sent her back to college to get another degree when she got picked up for major. She has 5 college degrees. I'm sorry, nobody needs 5 college degrees.
No, overachiever.
Yeah, well, I don't know about, but actually she got an undergraduate degree from Tarleton in animal science. Went to A&M, got a master's degree in reproductive physiology. I said, what in the world is that? She said, I'm going to be a cow gynecologist.
Yeah.
And with a master's degree, applied for vet school and didn't get an interview. So she asked the lady, what could I do? And the lady said, she looked at her, she said, young lady, I know you've done everything you need to do. You've worked for a veterinarian, you've got good grades, you've got a master's degree. I don't know why you didn't get interviews. So when Julie said, what can I do? She said, take some more classes. So she came back home, and in a year's time got another master's degree in biology from Tarleton, and then got into vet school.
Wow.
And then once she got picked up for major, and they said, well, now that you're a major, you need to, they like 4 different things you can, lab science, something. And when the one that fit her more than anything else was community service. So she got her another master's degree in community service. and actually, once she was at A&M, she did an internship with the disaster recovery unit that's down there, and just loved it.
Wow.
And they're actually holding a job open for her. She's trying to get out of the Army, and they're actually holding a job for her. When she gets out of the Army, she's got a job at A&M.
Wow.
So, which is
and
kind of
A&M's got the top vet school, one of the top vet schools.
Yeah, it's not the only one in Texas now, though. For years and years it was. Now there's one at
Tech.
At Texas Tech. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Congratulations to her.
I'll tell her.
Is there anything that you would like to add to your interview that we have not covered?
Gosh, I don't know what it would be. I mean, I'm just thankful that, like I said, I live in a free country, that I could serve my country. I was telling your compadre a while ago, the only claim to fame I have at Charlton is when they set the military memorial out here, the big cube. I was the physical plant director when they did that.
Really?
And I put a Sacagawea dollar, the metal, I put one of them on the ground underneath it, and it's still there. Well, I guess it's still there because no way you'd ever get it out.
Yeah.
But someday in 40 years or 50 or 60 years from now, when they decide to move that, I hope that dollar's still under there.
Absolutely.
That's part of the, I'm sure it used to be, I'm sure it's still part of campusology questions that they ask every year for the freshmen. So.
Yes. What would you like people to remember about your story?
Oh gosh, mainly just that we live in a free country, a great country. It may not be the best country, but it's a great country. It's got to be a pretty good country, or all the illegal aliens that's trying to come here all the time would not be trying to come here.
Absolutely.
I just hope that we can continue to keep our country the great country that it is. And the only way we're going to do that is by having a strong military.
Of course. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day and coming and interviewing with us. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you here.
It was a pleasure for me to come and to tell my little story, as short as it is.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate y'all letting me do it.